We'll start with the prayers. Om Sahana Bhavato Sahanau Bhunakto Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Today will be our last session for the Saddarshanam. And we have finished 14 sessions so far on this text. What we have seen is up to verse number 40 last week. Today we will start with the 41st verse. The last 2-3 verses which we have done are extremely important. Verse number 37 uses the logic to say that why we are in samsara, why do we suffer, why do we experience sorrow in life. And like the Upanishads, Ramana Maharishi says that this is due to the Maya Shakti. This Maya Shakti is inborn, is attached to the highest reality. That means Ishvara. So Ishvara has a Shakti to create this entire universe, and his Shakti is called as Maya Shakti, and it has got 2 powers, the veiling power and the projecting power. Because of the projecting power, our mind also has got the projecting power. That means if you look deep inside your mind, you will realize that almost every second, every minute of the day, you are projecting something. You're projecting something of this world, either out of memory or out of vasanas, which have come to us from several births. So this projecting power, which is called as the mind, is the one which keeps us attached to this gross body. Bhagavad Gita clearly tells us that what connects the body with the soul is the mind. Soul means the pure Sakshi. Here I'm taking the soul as the pure Sakshi. So what connects that soul, which is the ultimate reality in the universe, to this body is the mind. So the 37th verse talks about why we experience sorrow. It's because we think we are the mind. 38th verse teaches us that we drop this ego I. That means we try not to identify with this mind as me. All of us will experience the mind, but the teaching is don't identify the mind as the self. Identify the self as pure consciousness. So the moment you drop the mind, what Ramana Maharishi says is you are in the lap of Atma, which is pure consciousness without any sorrow in it. This is what the Upanishads also tell us. In many Upanishads, the focus is on the mind. 39th verse tells us what is the reality. Is it Dvaitam? Dvaitam means, are there two things real in this world? One consciousness and the other the body, mind, and the world. Are there two separate entities? If so, that is called as Dvaitam, dual. Suppose we understand that this body mind does not have an independent existence, but the adhishtanam, the substratum for this body and mind, the existence of this body, the consciousness of this body is borrowed from another factor, which we call it as Atma or Brahman. Then what happens? This body and mind is a dependent entity like the dream. The dream is dependent on the waker's mind. Similarly, the waker's body and mind is dependent on Atma. Then what we say is, there is no body mind separate from Atma, the pure consciousness. In this method, the name given to Atma is Advaitam, non-dual consciousness. Alone exists as the substratum for the entire universe. That is why we say Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. And there are some other people who say that there is a mixture of Dvaitam and Advaitam, and it is this mixture which is the world. Here Shankaracharya uses the logic. You cannot mix two opposite attributed entities together. You cannot have light and darkness together. You cannot have hot and cold ice cream together. So there are two opposite features you cannot combine. Therefore, the mixed philosophy is dropped, Dvaitam is dropped, ego is dropped as an entity which appears and disappears. And where does it appear and disappear? It appears and disappears in consciousness. Therefore, Ramana Maharishi says that take that consciousness as your real nature, and the mind and the body as appearances during the waking state due to the law of karma. This is how beautifully he analyzes this entire world. The 40th verse, which is what we did last before we left, again Ramana Maharishi emphasizes you drop the ego I. Ego I means doership and enjoyership. Throughout the day, I am doing so many activities. And because I do certain actions, I enjoy the result of action. So in normal interactive world, we have to use the ego I. We will be using the ego I always. The only thing is, when we are trying to inquire, who am I? At that time, we have to drop the ego I and own up the Sakshi, that pure witness, which is always existent. At no time it ceases. So this way, slowly Ramana Maharshi is coming to the end of the discussions on Saddarshanam. And throughout this text, we have seen his main point is drop the mind. Drop the mind, ask who am I without the mind, because only with the mind I'm aware of this body. Without the mind, I am not aware neither of the body, neither of the world. Then who am I? I am that pure non-dual Advaitam Chit, pure awareness principle. The real challenge in spirituality is to differentiate this pure awareness with the body-mind complex and the world. The moment you are able to understand the technique of dropping this identification of the body and mind, then it's very, very easy. The technique to use has been beautifully described in this Saddarshanam by Ramana Maharshi. Very simple technique. All of us can easily follow this. It only expects us to inquire in the same logical way Ramana Maharshi has taught us. This is a teaching. Each one of us have to introspect, where is the I notion in our own mind coming from? And once we try to find the source of this I notion, you will find that the I notion drops and it merges with pure awareness, exactly like in sleep. The I notion in sleep is not there, not experienced, but we are there. So that pure awareness which we experience in our sleep state, it is in some Upanishads, it clearly says that is our real nature, intrinsic nature. So now let us go to 41st verse. We have 4 more verses. Another 2 verses teach us about bondage and liberation. And the last 2 verses are just a summary of the text. This verse is asking us where there is a sense of bondage, anxiety for liberation will be there. That means the moment you try to understand what is this factor in me which is inside me, but I don't know how what it is and how it is acting. Basically, the question of the mind. It is the mind which is anxious about itself. And it is the mind which is seeking liberation from this body. So when we say moksha, moksha means what? It is the mind trying to free itself from this body and asking the question, who am I? And then it is the mind realizing that I am not what I think I am, but I am someone else. I am the Atma. By the inquiry for whom is this bondage, one's own self, that means the ever-free Atma is revealed, and we can be established in that. After having established, after having realized this pure awareness as my nature, from that point of view, you can ask the question, who had this bondage? Who has got liberated? then what it says is that becomes the higher self. So in short, this verse explains to us that the bondage is for the ego I. And Vedanta tells us that this ego I is a false entity. That is what we have seen in many verses before, that it is a false entity which rises as soon as the body wakes up in the morning. And when the body goes to sleep, mind goes to sleep, and then this ego I disappears. Again, the next day it comes, again it goes off. If you ask the question why this is happening, why I'm not able to come out of it, even after knowledge, why I'm not able to come out of this, the answer given by the scriptures is prarabdha. That is the law of this universe. Accept it, but come out of it. So once we understand that this ego I is false, then there is no thought of bondage or concern for liberation. Because if the entity itself is false, suppose you have a fake $100 note. There is no use for that. I can't do anything with that. So similarly, with a fake I, with a fake mind, I can conduct the vyavahara. That means I can conduct my interactions with the world, which will be as per the law of the prarabdha. I will be interacting with my son, with my daughter, with my family, with the external environment, and so on. That is all. It's all prakriti. It is all nature. We are all part of nature. The first thing we should understand is I am not alone. I am a part of this entire cosmos. And once I release myself that this is not me, then I have to ask the question, who am I? And then what happens is we realize our true nature as awareness. And that is called as the higher I, Atma I. And that Atma I is ever free. Ever free. There is no liberation, there is no time in which it was bound to the body. And that Atma I is the consciousness principle by which we are aware of the world. Each one of us is aware. I'm aware of my body. I'm aware, my eyes are seeing forms, my eyes are seeing colors. I'm able to see my children. I'm able to see my room. I'm able to see my house. That knowledge principle is called as pure awareness, pure consciousness. It is a knowledge. All knowledge which we have of the universe belongs to this pure awareness principle. It is through the mind and through the sense organs that knowledge gets spread into the universe. Liberation is not a state one attains after tapas or meditation. It is not a state of mind in meditation. We should be very careful. We use meditation as a technique to calm our mind. That's all. After that, we have to apply the knowledge given by the scriptures. What is the nature of bondage and liberation? Bondage means sorrow, liberation means happiness. Here, liberation means Atma. The knowledge itself, Sat, Chit, Ananda. That's what we say is our real nature. Sat means existence, Chit means consciousness, and Ananda means happiness. So in my real nature, I am always these three factors. I exist all the time, I'm conscious, and I am blissful. We need to get to the root of ego I to realize the pure self. and realize that we are ever free. In this Atma, there is no time. It is beyond time. It is beyond space. It is beyond objects. These three things are the definitions of Atma. On gaining liberation, one realizes one was never bound. That means we were thinking bondage is a notion in the mind. And that is what we call it as the I notion. Bondage and liberation are both notions in the mind. I am liberated, I am bound. These are the two thoughts in the mind. And the seer of these two thoughts is the Sakshi. That is how we have to understand the nature of Atma. Amrita Bandhu Upanishad, the main verse in that Upanishad, we have covered this Upanishad in our Upanishad classes. And this is the most important verse, number 2 of the Amrit Bindu Upanishad. This is the most important verse in that Upanishad. It says, Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho. Mind alone is the cause of bondage. Mind alone is the cause of freedom for human beings. This is the Pramanam. This is the source by which Ramana Maharishi has written these verses. So, the source for the Bhagavad Gita, the source for any of the writings by Ramana Maharishi or by others, the source is only one, which is Upanishads. Mind, when it is attached to the sense object, is the cause of bondage. Suppose I think of buying a car, and the whole time I'm thinking, oh, I must buy a car. I must buy a car. Without a car, I can't enjoy my life. And this thought keeps on going around. I'm just giving an example of one bondage. Similarly, there could be other bondages. I want to get married. I want to get married. I want to get married. This is another thought. That again is a mind. I want to attain certain things. I want to attain. So that becomes a bondage. See, what we have to understand is that there are good bondages and there are not good bondages. If I want to learn Vedanta, that is also a bondage. It is not a bondage, but it is a sattvic bondage. Rajasic bondage means I cannot live without that. Tamasic is worse. That means it's really, you're so much bent on getting that, you lose your sleep over it. So we have lived as the ego, not only in this life, but in several innumerable lifetimes. Because of the lack of knowledge that there is something called as Atma, there is something called as Sakshi, I didn't know about it. And now that I have understood that there is a higher nature of mind, which is not affected at all by the interactions of the body and the mind, and that pure I is my real nature, which is Advaitam. It is non-dual, which means that unless until that I, Sakshi, is there, this world cannot be seen. It cannot be experienced. That is why it is called as Advaitam. Moksha is removal of this notion of bondage. Accepting bondage, sorrow for myself is called as ignorance. Many times we are confused. We say in this ignorance is also a factor of the mind only. It's an attribute of the mind only. So I don't know what is this mind. That is what is called as ignorance of the mind or ignorance of the Sakshi. There are two aspects. First of all, we don't know what this projecting power is. And second is, I don't know what is the substratum of this mind. That is called as Mula Avidya. I don't know the self. I don't know the Atma. Incapacity to accept oneself as one is the cause of all human problems. Many a times it is said, you accept your deficiencies of the mind and of the body, and you will have a much more blissful life. Accept it. Accept that they are there and I have to face it. And this is a given thing. I cannot escape. Many a times, if I can do something to escape it, yes, I will try my best. But many a times, we don't accept, and therefore we keep on thinking about this again and again and again and again. It becomes a jwara. It becomes a mental fever. And that mental fever is called as samsara. This samsara is always a sense of limitation. Limitation with reference to the physical body, limitation with reference to the mind, limitation with reference to the intellect. These are the three limitations which create bondage for us. And sorrow is nothing else but a thought. It is an emotion, it is a thought in the mind which is in very fast speed, which becomes an emotion, and that is born in the mind and it dissolves in the mind. Over a period of time, all the sorrows will get dissolved. So we go to the locus of sorrow and ask, who has this sorrow? Then you will discover that this ego I will drop itself because it cannot stand any inquiry. That is what Ramana Maharshi clearly says, and the Upanishad also says the same thing. That ego I, the moment you ask the question, who am I, then what happens is this ego I learns to drop itself, and when that happens, you are already in the lap of Atma. The real I cannot have sorrow. This is what Narada was also taught by Sanat Kumara in Chandogya Upanishad. Narada went to his guru and said, I know so many things in this world. I know the stars, I know the planets, I know the different languages, I know so many different things. It's like having 20 or 30 PhDs on so many different topics. But he said, I don't know one thing. I don't know how to get rid of sorrow in my life. And then his guru taught him the principle of Atma. This is how the Upanishads teach us Brahma Vidya or Atma Vidya. Nirvana Shatkam, which I quote very often, Name Dvesha Ragau, Name Lobha Mohau, Mado Naiva Me Naivam Matsarya Bhavaha. I don't have any pride or jealousy or delusion. I have no duty to perform. These are all in the seat of meditation, which we can say as Atma. The moment we are out of meditation, this will not apply, because here in the seat of meditation, we are trying to find out the real source of the mind. At that time, this can be uttered and we will be with our blissful nature of pure consciousness. So as I said before, body is mortal. It is made up of 5 elements. Atma is immortal. It is eternal. It is not matter. It is the spiritual essence which we are. This spiritual essence is ever free from the body and mind. It is ever existent. It is not born. It doesn't have death. I must get this knowledge of Atma. This is what we get from Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads. They tell us in so many verses, who am I? Who am I? I am the Atma. I am the Atma. I am the Atma. And what is this ego I? Ego I is the one which is connecting the Atma with the body. This is the ego I. It comes and it goes. It comes and it goes. And it is this which has got bondage. It has got sorrow. By asking the question, who has this thought of sorrow? This ego I disappears. And why do we have a waking state and a sleep state, again a waking state, again a sleep state? This is the law of karma. This is how the law of karma operates. The body and mind, they are acting in this world for actions. We are all expected to do our duty. That is what is called as dharma. We follow the dharma of the body, dharma of the mind. We do our duty. That's all. Whatever our duty is today, we do it. While doing your duty, understand our real nature as Atma. That is the purpose for which this body, we are born in this particular body, to understand our real nature. There is no bondage or liberation for the Atma I. I am the ever free immortal Atma is Ramana Maharishi's conclusion. This is in line with the Advaitic teaching of the Upanishads. So Ramana Maharishi has taught us in this text exactly what we will learn in what we have learned in the Upanishads or the Bhagavad Gita. It's the same subject, it's the same topic. The 42nd verse tells us that there are 3 forms of this liberation. The knowers say that the liberation is of 3 forms: with form, without form, and the nature of both. This is after we have realized that we are the pure Atma, then this particular knower we can analyze in 3 different ways. The first one is, I am liberated while I'm living here. That is what is called as with form. That means I have a form and I say I am now liberated because I know my mind is a temporary phenomena during the waking state. It goes away in the sleep state, but I remain as pure Atma. This is called as Jivan Mukti. While living, I am free. I am free from my identification with the mind as me. I will always be identified with the mind because that is the law of karma. That is the law of prarabdha. That is the law of the nature of the body. But I know I am not this. Neti neti. The second is without form. Some say that after getting this knowledge, when the body leaves at the end of prarabdha, that person is free. That means he becomes free when he is without the body, without the form. That is called as Videha Mukti. That means liberation after the fall of the body. And then there are some people who say both. He is with form liberated and without form also liberated. That means they take Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti together. But ultimately what? The destruction of the ego I is the supreme liberation. Destruction means what? Falsification. Very important word, falsification. I falsify this ego as fake I. It's not my real nature. As long as there is body, we identify with the body, there is no question of any liberation, because identification of the body is natural. So for those people who believe that liberation is only after the fall of the body, they will say true liberation is after the body falls. But then there are some, like I said, liberation while living and continues after the fall of body. What Ramana Maharshi is asking here is, again he says, find out who is analyzing these three ideas. It is the ego I. When the ego I has a death, it doesn't, it's falsified. That is what is called as supreme liberation. And that status of the mind to be without identifying itself is very common to us. Each one of us does it in the state of sleep. We are not identified with our mind, neither with the body. So there are two eyes in us. Each one of us have got two eyes. One which identifies with the body and mind, that is what I call it as ego I. One who claims I am the Atma, ever without the body and mind. And Atma, like I said, is ever unaffected by the body, by the conditions of the body or the mind. It is ever without this body-mind complex. That means it is all by itself. Never born, never dies. That Atma is what I am claiming as my real nature. When I do that, it is called as Sakshi I. When I'm identifying with the body and mind, it is called as the ego I or the Pramata I. This is what is said in the Bhagavad Gita also. Na jayate mriyate va kadachit nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyah ajo nitya shashvatoyam puranah na hanyate hanyamane sharire. Atma is the formless like space. It is never born. Like space. Space has got no form. It's formless. So Atma, from the formless Atma, the space itself is born. That is what Taittiriya Upanishad says. Never is affected. Atma is never affected by the body-mind complex. It appears and disappears. That means the body-mind appears and disappears. Into what? Into Atma. Space is ever unaffected with or without the pot in it. That means whether the pot exists as a pot or it doesn't exist, the space is always free. It always exists. It is free from the pot. The space in the pot and the space outside is always one. The Atma I is ever liberated with or without the body is the final conclusion of Ramana Maharshi. Teaching of Saddarshanam ends in this 42nd verse. Duality is the cause of the problem of samsara, and this duality is nothing else but the I notion. The moment the I notion, I reflection comes in the mind, immediately we have duality. If I don't have this duality as in sleep, then that is called as moksha. Transcending this division of the body, mind, and the universe is called as moksha, which is liberation. The three types of the moksha which we discussed is also called in Bhagavatam as Rupini, Arupini, and Ubhayatmika. Rupini means Salokya Bhakti. That means I am in the body, but my form is I am in the same loka as the Lord. Salokya. That means Atma is separate. God is separate. But I am together with Atma. That knowledge of Dvaitam is called as Salokyam. I have discussed this in the Bhagavad Gita also. Arupini means without the body. I don't have a body, but I am the pure Atma. Ubhayatmika means Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti both are there. Samipya. Samipya means I am very, very close to God, but still the duality is there. In all these three forms, there is a sense of separation from the body and mind. Ramana Maharshi says, Ahamkara is the one which divides mukti into many types, like the top, like what we have discussed. When we are still discussing moksha with reference to the body or with reference to the aham in this body, ahamkara, then it will fall into these three categories. I am different and free from the sthula sukshma shariram. Ahamkara is only a vyavaharika satyam. That means it is existent only in this plane of consciousness. When the body is alive, the sense organs are awake and the mind is awake. And what about the Paramarthika Satyam? Paramarthika Satyam is where the Atma alone is. Pure consciousness alone is. So what here we have to do is we have to take or jump from this Vyavaharika plane to the higher plane of consciousness to claim our real nature. This is very, very important to understand, because this is what is called as transcendental. Very often the acharyas, they use two words, immanent and transcendental. Immanent means the same pure consciousness is getting reflected in this body and mind. Therefore, we call it immanent. Immanent means it is right now, it is in this body and mind, which is why we call it as Vyavaharika Satyam. But then when the body and mind is not there, as in sleep, it doesn't mean that pure consciousness is disappeared. No, it exists all by itself. When it exists all by itself, it is called as Paramarthika Atma. Exactly like the super waker. We are waker right now. The moment I understand that I am the super waker, I can exist without the body and mind. That is called as the real nature. We are free in spite of the mithya activities of the ahamkara. So the Advaitin, what he does is, even when the body is acting, he will say, yes, the world is there, but it is not absolute reality. I am eating. That is what in the chapter 9 of the Bhagavad Gita, 4th and 5th verse, Pralapan, Visrujan, Unmishan, Nibishan, Napi. So what Krishna taught there is, while the body is acting itself, know that you have a higher nature. Claim that nature as your intrinsic nature. This Paramarthika Mukti is the real liberation. Ego I is the cause of all the problems. World people are not the problem, but it is the ego I. Generally, we tend to blame the world or some other relationship for all our problems. We say that my husband is not good, my wife is not good, my children are not good, the world, my boss is not good. We talk about all those things. But what we say, Ramana Maharishi is saying is, it is this I, there is one I. Understand that this I is the cause of all those problems. It is connecting the world with that. The world is getting connected to this body only with that I notion. Understand this I notion, you will realize that the problem is not outside, but the problem is inside. And the moment we understand there is a problem inside us, then we know how to get rid of this bondage. Ahamkara, there is a safe part to it and there is a poisonous part. Claiming that Ahamkara, the ego I, as Satyam is the poisonous part, which causes sorrow. The same Ahamkara, I claim it as Mithya. It's just an appearance. And every Mithya Vastu, every false entity must have a substratum. And that substratum for this ego I is the Atma. That is Satyam. Like for the rope snake, which is Mithya, the substratum is the rope. Similarly, for all our problems of the mind, the substratum is the consciousness. And once we understand that, that is called as pure Sat. It is not a part of the body, it is not the part of the mind, it is not the property of the body, mind, or the world. Because all these three are matter principle, and pure consciousness, pure existence is the spiritual principle. I am that Sat. It continues even when the world collapses, like in sleep. The world is no longer there when we are asleep. But who continues? This pure consciousness, awareness continues. That is called as Sat Darshanam. Atma Darshanam means falsifying Ahamkara. Take Ahamkara as a lower nature and Atma as the higher nature. 43rd verse. Now, the person who has translated this text of Ramana Maharshi is concluding it. What does he say? His name is mentioned in this particular verse, Vasishta Muni. So Vasishta Muni is the one who has composed this particular Saddarshanam in Sanskrit language. The original text was written by Ramana Maharishi. And the original text is called by the title Ulladu Narpadu. That means 40 rays of the sun. 40 rays of the Atma. 40 rays means the 40 teachings or 40 verses which he has written to explain this sunlight of Atma. So Vasishta Muni composed this Saddarshana in the language of the immortal. Sanskrit is called as the language of immortal. And he has only done a translation of the composition written by Ramana Maharishi in Tamil language. And what does he say? He says the inner experience of the great seer, Ramana Maharishi, I have just translated that experience. And that experience deals with what? It deals with Raja Vidya, the king of all the knowledge, which is the Atma Vidya, Paravidya. Mundaka Upanishad calls it Paravidya. Bhagavad Gita also calls it Paravidya. Chapter 7 of the Bhagavad Gita. Pure existence is the ultimate reality. We say man exists, table exists. Existence, when we normally used in our transactional field, is an adjective. We say the mobile exists. So when we say the laptop exists, the mobile exists, the table exists, the chair exists, the mic exists, the clock exists, when we say that is used as an adjective. But in Vedanta, what we say is existence. Existence is a noun. It is not an adjective. It's not an attribute of an object. Only substance in the universe is this pure self. This knowledge gives us ananda, which is called as moksha ananda. And this study is for one who has done the discrimination between the mind, body, and Atma. And this study is for an adhikari who has got Vairagyam, Sadhana Chatushtayam, and Mumukshutvam, the four qualifications which are mentioned in Vivek Chudamani and Tattva Bodha. And primarily, this text talks about the destruction of ahamkara, which is the ego I. The words of the Muni shine like a wall reflecting the rays of the divine utterances of Sri Ramana Maharshi, conveying the essence of the truth in simple form and giving joy to the seekers of liberation. Like the sun shines because of its own glory, Ramana Maharshi's words, even today, they shine because they are all talking about the inner essence in all of us. These teachings are like the rays. They give us the vision of the truth, the Saddarshanam. Sat means pure existence. Pure existence is nothing else but pure consciousness. And pure consciousness is bliss. When I am not attached to the body and mind as my own self, I am the pure Sat. Vasishtha Muni says his work is like a mirror, capturing the 40 original brilliant rays of the sun of Ramana Maharshi. It shines only with captured glory. He says it is not my glory, it is Ramana Maharshi's who has written this. That is his vision, which I have only translated in Sanskrit. I have only borrowed the teaching of Ramana, who is the avatara of the Lord. So with this, we complete the 44th verse. And in the 15th session, we have finished this text. We started this text in September last year. 30th September, we started this. And today, the 7th of January, we finish this text. In the next 20 minutes, I will do a quick roundup of another text, which is called as Upadesha Sara, which we have done before. Some of you who may have attended my sessions on Upadesha Sara may take this like a revision. The reason why I have decided to bring this 30 verses is for you to learn together that 44 verses of Saddarshanam and 30 verses of Upadesha Sara are teaching the same one Atma. If you see the style in which he has written this Saddarshanam and Upadesha Sara, you'll find many similarities. In Upadesha Sara, in the first two verses, Ramana Maharshi is saying that by doing karma, action, you cannot get moksha. You need knowledge. And in order to get knowledge, you must purify your mind. That is what he says in verse 3. Verse 4, he says, what are the three different main karmas which are used for purifying the mind? Number one, puja, which is good. But then what is better? Japa. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. You chant 108 times every day. That is better than puja. Chintanam, thinking about the Lord. Thinking about the nature of that Lord is the best, according to Ramana. Then he says, by karma yoga, you can develop the attitude of serving the Lord. That means there is a higher principle. I will do all my actions. This is also taught in the Bhagavad Gita. This is again a discipline for purifying the mind. And how does one do japa? One can do japa loudly, which is good. Softly, just murmur in the lips. It's better, but ultimately the best is mental japa. You chant Om Namah Shivaya first loudly, then let it be a whisper. You need not do 108 times to begin with. You can start with 10 times. Just chant 10 times. After 2 weeks, let it be a murmur. After 1 month, let the 10 times continue in the mind. This is the way to purify and make the mind single pointed. These are the steps. Upadesha Sara is teaching us mainly the steps involved in purifying the mind. Saddarshanam is a higher text compared to Upadesha Sara. Saddarshanam straightaway lifts us directly to our real nature. Dhyanam is mentioned in 7 and 8. Dhyanam means meditation, uninterrupted flow of thoughts, single pointed towards the nature of the Lord, without any other thoughts of the family, of the office. That is what is called as Dhyanam. And then he says Advaita Dhyanam is superior. You can get Advaita Dhyanam means what? That whole world is existing in the Lord. We are all coming out from the Lord, existing in the Lord and dissolving in the Lord. This is called as Advaita Dhyana. Verse number 9 talks about abiding in the Sat principle. This is how he starts the Saddarshanam in Upadesha Sara. Once I am able to free my mind of all the thought modifications, I am abiding in Sat. And how do I abide in it? By the practice of Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Jnana Yoga. These are all the steps, the disciplines I follow to make my mind non-wavering and single-pointed, and to abide in Atma. If you don't have the knowledge of Atma, you cannot rest in Atma. That's why the study of Upanishads is extremely important. Where again and again, the verses there, they teach us that we are that pure consciousness. Verse number 11 of Upadesha Sara talks about pranayama, by which mind is restrained. This I have said before also, how prana and mind are interconnected. And these two, and thus prana and the mind, both are nothing else but power, Shakti of the Lord. We all have breathing. We do breathing. The body is breathing throughout the life. That Shakti belongs to the Lord, who is the creator of this entire universe, who is the maintainer of this universe, and who is the dissolver of this universe. We all have a mind. We all have the power, Jnana Shakti. The mind can think and understand different things in the world. That power again is given to us by the Lord. It is the Lord's power. So don't ask, where is the Lord? This body is itself the Lord's home. These two powers, if you understand, it belongs to not me, but it belongs to the Lord. And this body house belongs to the Lord, created by the Lord. That is how we understand our nature. 13th verse says, absorption of the mind and destruction of the mind, both are possible by pranayama. Absorption means single pointedness. And destruction means what? Falsifying the mind. Because through pranayama, you get the strength of the mind. The mind gets tremendous strength. For those of you who don't do pranayama, don't worry. Nothing is wrong. You will, by the nature, by the knowledge itself, your mind can get strength. Verse number 14, mind restrained by prana gets destroyed by contemplation on the reality. So this is how the progression is of a student. So first you restrain the mind, and then slowly you start contemplating, thinking about that pure Atma. The way we have learned so far. That is how our mind should think. Verse 15 says, there is no duty for one who abides in the self. That means karma yoga is to be practiced till our mind is purified. Once the mind is purified, we get the knowledge. Once we get the knowledge, we can remain as pure awareness throughout our life. For that person, what the scripture says is there is no duty per se, but then he will have loka sangraha. He will do certain actions for the society. 16th verse, mind withdrawn from objects sees itself as the consciousness. That is the vision of reality. Very important verse because this tells you that how do I try to understand myself? Through various practices of what the mind is, what are the powers of the mind, how it projects and all that, we will be able to focus ourselves on the mind itself and then take all the objects from the mind, make that mind objectless. That objectless mind itself is called as consciousness. That is the vision of the reality. That is what we are in our sleep state. Pure consciousness, pure awareness without any trace of the body, mind, or the universe. When these three are not there, there is no sorrow. Therefore, we come to a conclusion, sorrow belongs to the mind. It does not belong to Atma. If the Atma had sorrow, then each one of us would have said, after sleep, when we get up in the morning, we'll say, oh, I had so much of sorrow in my sleep state. But nobody tells us that, nobody tells that he had sorrow in sleep. 17th verse says, mind is not real. It is apparent. It is seeming entity, which is what we discussed in Saddarshanam also. It appears in waking, disappears in sleep. All thoughts depend on the I thought. Hence, I thought is the mind. The same thing Ramana Maharshi said in the Saddarshanam also. It is the I thought which is the I notion, which is the cause of all sorrows. And this I notion comes as soon as we wake up in the morning. That light of Atma falls in the mind, and that when it falls in the mind, it gives the I notion and it wakes up, mind wakes up. So the inquiry is, where does this I thought come? Where does this ahamkara rise? And then one who does this inquiry, like he explained in Saddarshanam, he says the ahamkara will fall. When the ego falls, as said in the 20th verse, the supreme infinite Atma shines forth on its own. You don't have to do anything because Atma is self-evident. It is the light by which all minds are awake in waking. And it is the light of that mind which goes through the sense organs and we see the entire universe. All our activities are done with that light. This is how we should understand the pure consciousness, pure awareness. The ego I, 21st verse, merges with the pure I, and the pure I is the self-evident Atma. 22nd verse will say, I am one existence principle. I am that pure self-evident existence consciousness bliss principle, and not the body, mind, sense organs, or the prana. The body, mind, and the world by itself are inert by nature, and they are seemingly existent in the waking state, and they are not existent in the sleep state for the ego I. The 23rd verse, existence is consciousness and consciousness is what I am. This he has repeated many times. 24th verse says, Jiva and Ishvara are different with reference to the medium of the body only. One Atma, through one single individual body, single mind is called as Jiva. The same Atma, when it is expressing as the entire universe with so many living beings, it is called as Ishvara. And that Ishvara and this Jiva have got one common principle, and that common principle is called as consciousness. And that is what is called as the supreme reality, Uttama Purusha. The 25th verse says, by giving up this medium of the body and the mind, one can realize the self. Similarly, by giving up the entire cosmic gross body and the gross mind of the cosmos, the cosmic ego, Paramatma also knows his nature as Atma. That Atma which we have now discovered through our inquiry is non-dual. It doesn't have another consciousness. This world has got only one consciousness. There are no two consciousness. Sankhya and Yoga, they believe that each one of us has got a separate consciousness. Your consciousness is different than my consciousness. Your body has got one consciousness, my body has got another consciousness. Whereas Vedanta says that there is only one consciousness which is existing in all the bodies. Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi sarvakshetreshu bharata, the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the 3rd verse, is the pramanam, is a source which says there is only one consciousness. And realizing that one consciousness, I become free. Abiding in that one consciousness is Saddarshanam. The 27th verse says, consciousness is without the knowledge of objects and the thought of ignorance of objects. That means in the light of consciousness, there is knowledge, and in the light of consciousness, there is ignorance. Both are illumined by one consciousness principle. So, by knowing myself, what happens? I know the entire world. This is what Mundaka Upanishad was, the student in Mundaka Upanishad was asking. Oh, teacher, tell me, can you teach me one thing by which I can know the entire universe? So the teacher there taught Brahma Vidya. Here the same thing is called as Saddarshanam, which is the knowledge of this Atma or pure awareness. The 28th verse, inquire, what is my nature? And then you realize that my nature is not decaying. Body decays. Mind has problems. Attributes, they become, the mind has attributes. It has got limitations. Body is born. Atma is never born. Atma is complete. Purnaha. Consciousness is bliss. That is how we understand our real nature is. What is the benefit of this inquiry? The benefit of doing this inquiry is supreme happiness, which is beyond bondage and liberation. And the last verse of Upadesha says, by self-inquiry, one can get rid of this ego, which is the revealer of the self. That means when I learn to drop the ego, the self-evident Atma, I can claim as my real nature. It is self-evident. It is always there. So there are only two things. One is the ego, I, another is the Sakshi. This whole 74 verses, 44 verses of Saddarshanam, 30 verses of Upadesha Sara, both of them 74 verses together, they teach us how I can know that my mind is different than me, the Sakshi. So this is a very practical text, a beautiful text written by Ramana Maharshi. We have been fortunate to learn this text. And for those of you who are doing this, who are learning this for the first time, I would suggest that you revise this at least once a year, because you will be doing other texts. So constant remembrance of some of these verses. Maybe out of the 74 verses, you may like 4 verses. Just write those 4 verses, keep it separately, and contemplate. Whatever has made sense, whatever has made a deep impact on you out of these 74 verses, you can select 10 verses, 5 verses, and then keep thinking of it. Because in that way, we will be remembering the nature of this inquiry. Next week, we will start Dakshinamurti Stotram. It consists of 10 verses, and it's a very highly advanced text, but it's very profound, and we will be taking up the important lessons of Advaitam in that, and it might take 4 or 5 sessions. I'll probably finish those 10 verses. And then after that, I plan to do Mandukya Upanishad. Very, very popular Upanishad. We'll see how to take it up. And so for about 4 sessions, I feel, for the 10 verses, maximum 4 sessions. And then we will do Mandukya Upanishad. With this, I close this session today. And if you have any inquiries, any questions, you can ask them at the end of this session. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnahat Purnamudachade Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyade. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. There's no questions in the chat board. Shanmugam, can you open up the session for everybody to ask direct questions? So you can use your own speakers and then ask the question, or if you have anything else to comment, you can comment.
Shekharji, good evening.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's Uma here.
Yeah,
Shekharji,
Uma.
my question is, even non-living objects, they
Yes,
do have sat and chit. It's just that they don't have the mind to recognize the sat and chit. Is that correct?
yes, you're right.
Okay.
See,
And
that is the difference between inert objects
yes,
and living beings. All living beings have got some rudimentary form of the mind. So plants have got the very rudimentary, then little bit advanced is the animals, and then the human being is the most advanced living being, which has got the most developed mind. So the consciousness is reflected in all the inert objects also, because that is also a part of the Lord.
okay.
And the only difference between the objects and us is we have a thinking capacity. We have, we can understand and we can analyze logically who we are. So when it comes to moksha, only in a human body a person can get liberated. Only in a human body. In Vivek Chudamani, Shankaracharya clearly says this, that all of us are fortunate to have a human body. And
Okay.
it's by using this body and mind, we can analyze and ask ourselves this question: is this body the ultimate reality? Because what is this body? Body is just a house. What is this mind? Mind is just making thoughts every day. It's just a thought and a thought and a thought. But who is the owner of this mind? There is some entity. That entity, once we start asking this question, what is this mind? Why is this mind playing so many tricks? It confuses me. It puts me into delusion. It creates so many desires in me. But then who is that? Who is behind this mind? That can be asked only by a human being. And once we do that inquiry, that is what Ramana Maharshi is very famous for. He says, ask this question again and again. Who is this I? Who is this? What is this mind? What is this substance called as the mind?
Yes.
And once you start analyzing it, then that uh, gives us the final benefit. So Uma, your question is very clear. Objects do not have the mind. We have the mind.
Yes. Thank you, Shekharji. I got it. Thank you.
Okay. Lakshmi is saying, other than Videha Mukti and Jivan Mukti in Saddarshanam, the third one, can it be considered as a combination of the above two ways? Yes, it is a combination. Are we in such a state? No, we are not in such a state, because uh, see, uh, when we, people who have got liberated, they have this confusion. They may you see, according to Upanishads, according to the real truth which the Upanishads declare, they say that we are Nitya Muktaha. Nitya Muktaha means what? I am ever free. This Jivan Mukti, Videha Mukti is for those people who are still attached to the body and trying to understand freedom with reference to the body. So they are still having some ego in them. And the best way to understand is, I am Nitya Mukta. I am not Ubhayam. I am not Jivan Mukti, Videha Mukti. These are all for the junior students. But a real senior student will never get into this confusion. I am ever free is the final teaching. What is differently handled in Saddarshanam and Upadesha Sara? What is differently handled is that in Upadesha Sara, more emphasis is given to preparation. They are saying that you should do karma yoga, you should do japa, you should do puja, how to prepare the mind is better explained in Upadesha Sara. For a junior student, Upadesha Sara is what is recommended. After you have purified your mind, then you come to Saddarshanam. Saddarshanam is a direct revelation of the Atma, direct revelation. It doesn't go into any preparation works and all that. It just say, okay, it uses pranayama. It says those are the techniques you can still use to purify the mind. But Saddarshanam is a direct text. There is not many texts like Saddarshanam, which is a revealer of the vision of the truth. You see, there are not many people who have written as, because this is Ramana Maharishi's own experience of what he has realized. And it's a very beautiful text because for people like us, many a times when we learn in the Gita or the Upanishads about Atma, we are not, we get a very simple, some vague impression about this Atma. That Atma is something called as existence, something called as consciousness, but I don't know whether I will realize it or not. But here in this Saddarshanam, the beauty is he makes us realize this. And he uses a very simple technique and he says, just focus on this I notion. In sleep, I have no I notion. In waking state, I have I notion. In dream state, I have I notion. So, if I have in sleep state no I notion, that means what? This I notion is temporary. It is not permanent. It comes, it goes. It comes, it goes. What comes and goes is not the truth. What really is the truth is always existent. It is always ever there. Nitya Mukta Atma. So this distinction of the mind and the Atma is what separates this Saddarshanam from many other texts. What is the difference? Okay, the next question is from Ganesh. What is the difference between self-inquiry method of Ramana Maharshi, which is the uninterrupted condition of observation or reflected consciousness, and self-inquiry of traditional text, Neti Neti, Soham, Shruti, Mananam, Nididhyasnam? Okay. Very good question by Ganesh. Basically, what the difference is, Neti Neti method, which is used in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, is another technique. These are all different techniques. Our mind are very different. One mind will prefer Neti Neti. It will prefer Nirvana Shatkam. I am not this, I am not this, I am not this. But ultimately, one mindset will like that particular method. Another mindset may not be happy with that Neti Neti method. It will ask the question, there is some factor in me which is talking to me, which is telling me to do certain things. What is that factor? I want to go more deeper into that factor. So for those people, I mean, these are all only techniques only. And it depends on what type of a mindset I have and what I like. Soham is another method. Soham means I am that. See, these are all the techniques of meditation also. I am that. If you are able to meditate, I am that pure consciousness. I am that pure consciousness. You need not follow the inquiry method of Ramana Maharishi. You can stick to your Soham. Suppose you are doing the meditation of Neti Neti and you like that. This is one of the techniques. If it appeals to you, you can do it. Or just take it as an academic exercise. Okay, you have learned one more method. That's all. Does it answer your question, Ganesh? Okay. The next question, okay, Lakshmi Pillai is just saying, okay, thank you. Then Vijay, in Upadesha, Is Upadesha Sara similar to Sadhana Panchakam? In some aspects, yes. It also talks about the disciplines to be followed. These are all very similar in nature because, see, one thing we should understand, there are only two things we have to learn. One is about Atma, the nature of Atma. And Upanishads are the best for this. It will teach you in all the Upanishads, Kathopanishad, Kenopanishad, Ishavasya Upanishad, all these Upanishads will teach you about what is Atma, what is Atma, what is my nature. Each of these Upanishads, you just take the essence. Ultimately, we should learn that they are all only talking about my own nature. These lessons are all not to be kept in the textbooks and not to be kept in CDs and I've got very beautiful file notes, all that website, all that. No, these are all tools. They are techniques for us to remember. So ultimately, we should use this and try to apply it in our own self. So the Atma part of it is the knowledge part. The second part of it is the mind. All of us have to understand our mind very well. Throughout our spiritual journey, one goal we must understand is I must know my mind. I must know the tricks the mind plays. I must learn what are the gunas of the mind. When am I sattvic? When am I rajasic? What are the desires which are there in me, which are not getting fulfilled? How does the mind react to different situations? These are all the beautiful lessons which we can use for our practical living. These are all fantastic lessons because while you learn the texts, you should have two goals. One is to learn about the mind. Second, and for learning that, there are different disciplines which are taught to us. So to answer your question in simple terms is, yes, the Sadhana Panchakam is also talking about the disciplines and final realization. And Upadesha Sara also, yes, they are all in the same methodology of teaching. Yeah, Shama, you have some questions on reflection which perhaps need clarification. Okay, can
So
you?
just in case you think I'm not there.
No. I know you are there, but I know that you haven't raised your hand. So today,
No, I had decided, I had made a very clear decision. I will wait for my chance because it's very unfair to a lot of people.
okay, no problem.
So if,
Yeah, please go ahead, Shama.
okay, so just first a few questions, yeah? So you referred to something as fake I, you
Yes,
know? So the ego, the ahankara ego as the fake I. And what is interesting, therefore, is like how the fake I, even in the normal Vyavaharika world, can be so troublesome. I don't know whether you heard the news, but where, Qatar, how they went out of the middle Qatar, news about Qatar and the Middle East politics. It
yes,
was all about how there was something fake on their system,
yes,
so even in the Vyavaharika world, it is so troublesome. So in our spiritual world, to adopt the fake ego is a horrible thing. So that's that. After realization, do we still continue to use this fake I in this Vyavaharika world? Or there is a difference in the way we use the false I? Because we do need...
yes. There is a difference. You see, that is what is called as a jnani and ajnani.
Okay.
So ajnani means a person who has zero knowledge of Atma. Jnani is a person who has got 100% knowledge of Atma. Now, what difference jnanam
Yeah.
makes to the ego I?
Yeah.
That is your fundamental question.
Correct.
The ego I, when it doesn't have the knowledge of Sakshi, or when it is not a purified ego, is a gross ego. You know, it thinks that it is the person.
Mm.
It, you know, all of us, without the knowledge of Atma, we are gross ego personalities.
Correct. Yeah.
We have absolutely no clue, and we think that ego is me. 100%. So that is a big problem,
Mm-hmm.
because that has got 100% identification with this body.
A lot of errors will be there.
Yes.
A lot of mistakes.
A lot of mistakes, lot of errors, lot of confusions, lot of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
All these are all the personalities of a ajnani. That means the ego is gross, it is not purified.
So this is from a place of spiritual wisdom that we start
Yes,
operating.
that's correct. You see,
Yeah.
this, you can see a person, you can easily watch this in people. You see, we are all living in this world.
Mm.
You live in London, you can see so many people who are there who have zero knowledge. You know, some Britishers and some people from London, they have absolutely no knowledge. So see, they are going up sometimes and suddenly down sometimes. Emotionally, they're strewn between two worlds. You
And
see,
sometimes you can't understand how can the same person behave like this.
yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, you take an example of a jnani.
Mm.
This jnani is living in London also. He is also facing the same COVID crisis, and he is much more mature.
Yeah.
So
So
the ego I, which is gross, cannot understand itself. That is the biggest problem.
correct, correct. So that's a huge progress then
Yes.
by itself, even in the path towards the realization.
That's correct.
As we acquire more jnanam.
Yes, even if you have not understood the Atma, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Even if you're not a realized person, doesn't matter. But you know, while you're in the path, you are a better human being.
Right. In the final realization, there is no ego I, there is no Sakshi I either.
Yes, there is no ego I. There
So
is no
because the mind is dropped altogether.
Yes,
Thank
the
you.
mind is totally absorbed in the Atma.
Correct. Thank you. And then the last, yeah, so the benefits of the palam, you have said it is to be obtained, say, you know, there are very many different people who can read the same text or listen to your talk, and we can all absorb things differently,
Yes.
depending upon our preparedness as an adhikari.
Correct.
Yeah, because you have mentioned it. Only, you actually said, can be grasped only. You actually said only. I felt like underlining that one and writing in bold. Only by prepared students, adhikari.
Yes. The
Would you
final
say that's correct?
realization will come when you are ready.
Okay, good.
You know,
Also,
you may
yeah.
get glimpses of Atma, but it may
Yeah.
not be the final.
Okay, then you have mentioned elsewhere in, I think, some of your other talks, like at the end of this inquiry, all this, you know, these models which you have earlier referred, I can't remember the name what you've said, the Jiva Jagat Ishvara vision.
Yes, that's correct.
Becomes a binary one.
Yes, the binary
Yeah.
and the
Ishvara and me.
yeah, is a triangular form.
Triangular format to binary format. And then this is a flat line, or you can say it's a bindu.
Which one?
I'm trying to draw. I love to see things in a visual form. So first it was a triangle, then it became a binary. It's
Yes.
like almost two parallel.
Atma and the world. Actually, Saddarshanam is a part of binary only.
Okay. Then finally you reach the bindu. Is
Yes.
it
The
a
bindu
singularity? Singularity.
Yes,
There's only one singularity.
yes,
So this is a text which is helping us to reach the same aikyam.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, okay, fantastic, thank you. Now, the last bit is, no, it's not the last bit, it's the one question which I had about, you said about the 40, that was a very nice word. I would want to write it perhaps somewhere else, or maybe in your text it should be added. The original Tamil, so
Yeah,
it wasn't called Saddarshanam.
it's called
In the,
Ulladu Narpadu. Ulladu Narpadu,
which was not Saddarshanam.
it's not
It's in the
Saddar.
text only, no? Yeah.
Yeah,
You see, the name in Tamil is called.
yeah.
I put in the text in the last in the 43rd verse. I have put.
Okay, okay, I'll read it. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's brilliant.
yeah,
So it was not called Saddarshanam, and it is Muni Vashishta who actually gave the title Saddarshanam.
that's correct.
Okay.
He gave it as a title in Sanskrit called as Saddarshanam. Ulladu Narpadu means in Tamil. In Tamil,
How nicely you say it.
because I'm Tamilian, so I know.
Wonderful. I love the sound of it.
Yeah, see,
Uh,
Ulladu means inner, is truth. Ulladu means truth.
Okay.
Narpadu means 40.
40.
Ullada means truth.
Yes, the
Okay.
truth is Ulladu Narpadu. That means there are 40 things in this truth.
Okay.
I am giving these 40 things in these 40 verses.
And Nardadam?
Napadu means 40.
40. Napardam is 40. Okay.
Yeah, Napadu means 40. Ulladu means truth.
Fantastic. And the last 4 verses, 1, 2, 3, 4, are by, all of them are by Muni Vashishta.
Yes.
Because his original was 40.
Yeah, 40 is the original verses. These 4 verses is written by this Vasishta Muni.
Yeah. Have I got 2 more minutes?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, because this is really risen only from the Jwara part of it. You refer to the Jwara.
Yeah, Jwara is a
Or the
mental fever.
mental fever, which really kind of this thing. So, and that of course relates to the body, mind, intellect.
Yeah, mainly the mind. Mainly the mind which keeps on repeating the thoughts in the mind. I'm
Okay.
suffering. I'm doing this. Again, it's a repetition. That is what is called as jwaram. Jwaram means
Okay.
fever.
So now what I'm saying is the reflection. I only want a clarification whether you think it's the right kind of a thinking or a wrong thinking, which is from today morning, because I've been thinking about it. So, see, going back to that Om chart,
Yes.
yeah, the body, mind, and intellect.
Yes.
Okay, so the body is the perceiver, which is
Yeah.
all relates to the ultimate goal is objects, which
Yes.
is of course the normal samsara.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I have to find a remedy for it, so for each of those 3 things, I have tried to explore what is the remedy for each one of them, because we obviously have got all 3. Yeah. So for the body, in order for the body to be remained aligned in this spiritual journey, therefore, what perhaps comes closest best will be the yoga. If people
Yes,
who
that's
have,
correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
yoga will help the body to be fit and to remain fit to understand that Atma.
and that pranayama, etc., is
Yes.
kind of an
Yeah.
extra benefit that you get from this thing. So that's for the body part of it. Now for the mind part of it, which according to Swami Chinmayananda, that is the feeler and the actual object is emotion, which is a huge problem in the Jwara concept.
Yes. Yes.
Our emotions are always getting the better of us. Yeah.
Correct.
So for that, it is, I was thinking that in this upasana aspect, that is where our satsanga will be good. Your talks, lectures are good, satsanga, associating with good people, bhajan, music, mantras, and selected audio, video, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that is really trying to be an antidote
Correct. That's
for the otherwise poisonous stuff which we keep getting.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the mind part of it. And then finally, the intellect part of it, of course, there is no doubt that Vedanta is the supreme. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's
Yeah,
nothing
so-
that can replace Vedanta for the intellect.
Yeah. However,
you may have done, you may have 24 PhDs on different aspects,
I heard that, yeah.
but the real PhD is the Vedanta PhD.
Excellent. No, I agree 100% with you. There is the only other this thing is, if you have still that curious, head which keeps on eating away into what is the truth, what is the truth. For instance, like I came across something on the quantum reality, and
Yeah.
it almost seemed like, God, that is Vedanta, because how a reality is at a subparticle level, it creates a very different reality. And the images that also, which is one of the experiments that they showed in that. So what I was thinking, the closest next best to, because some curious heads like mine, to Vedanta perhaps will be knowledge of some quantum mechanics, if we can have science, truth, and philosophy, history of people or individuals, just a study of it,
Quantum.
not actually related.
Quantum theory.
Quantum theory, yeah. So
Yeah.
that will come nearly quite close to, not quite close to Vedanta, it's far inferior.
Yes.
But if one wanted to just relax and enjoy it, that's okay.
Yes, you see, one thing you should understand, whether it is quantum physics, whether it is history, whether it is all this, one thing is you should understand is quantum physics is only talking about Prakriti. They are the
Yeah.
marvels of Prakriti.
Correct.
See, the matter principle is a marvel by itself.
Yeah. But it finally excites that self
Yes.
to say, but what
Yes.
is further than that?
Yes.
It's very exciting.
What is exciting the Prakriti? That means when the atoms are getting split and the electrons and the neutrons are moving at fantastic speeds.
Yeah.
What makes that speed in the electrons and the atoms to move around? That is the power behind that is the Atma.
Yeah. So that is right. It boils around to, it actually is the wonder.
Yes,
Because
it's a
that
wonder.
what somebody, whether somebody can fly,
Yes.
or whether when somebody can peer into the furthest reality, what is actually hitting you is what is it that is actually compelling these scientists, driving them to that higher and higher pursuit, so that is what actually is so exciting.
And
Not so
only
much of what they're saying.
One thing you should remember is,
Yeah.
what is it in me which is pushing this truth? What is in me which is pushing me into this research?
Yeah.
That is what is called as the power of Maya.
Yeah. So I'm just drawing with the idea that there should be
It's the
something to relax
projecting
with.
power of the human mind.
Yeah, exactly.
That
That was
Shakti.
wonderful. Yeah. So therefore, then we have a vehicle, which is this vehicle, the
Yes.
body, mind, intellect vehicle, and it is perfectly well equipped if it is, maintained properly through all those various things. And so then we have three different paths, like the highways. So we've got the three different highways, one of the object, one of the mind, and one of the Vedanta principle,
Yes.
So there are three highways, and you are actually, as the traffic and obstacles, you're moving from one to the other. And this highway takes you only up to a particular point. Then you have to come off the highway, isn't it?
Yes, you have to.
Yeah, this is what I was thinking, that then
You have to reach the
actually
destination.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your body has to take a lower step. Your mind has to take a lower step. The intellect has to have the path.
Yeah.
That takes the lead and goes after the Atma.
Yeah, but then beyond that, what is strange is, and which is really what is the question, is that beyond where the highways end, you actually then enter this very dense forest of your own mind, which is unexplored so far. You were using all these things. Now you've left your vehicle and you actually enter there, and you actually, first time you're actually encountering those demons and devas, and like the Aranyakanda, which I was the closest analogy, which I was thinking even the Lord Rama had to go through the Aranyakanda, where he actually saw all these, he could fight, and then he actually met all these rishis who were you know, so it was not all the demons, but I feel even after you've done all the systematic way, you finally have to go to the jungle, and that even the guru has left you there, and everything has left. You're actually more or less ready to clear the jungle and go to the other end till you finally are there. It's
Yes.
just an analogy in my mind
No,
which was going through.
It's very beautifully said and very well pictured by you in the last 10 minutes. You have done it
Yes.
extremely well. I think you've got a fantastic mapping of how the...
Yeah, roadmap. So what I was trying to do is a roadmap for my
Yeah, it's
spiritual
good.
journey.
I think your mapping is correct and it's good, and you just follow it and just let it flow, but always keep that the final
Thematic.
message is only coming from the scriptures.
Yeah.
See, that you should always remember, that all this rest I have to drop it as false.
Yeah. And the approach which you keep saying, systematic, you know, step by step.
Yeah,
Yeah,
your
that's
mind
beautiful.
has to learn all this to systematically drop finally. Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara is in a lower plane of consciousness. Atma is at a higher plane of consciousness.
Yeah. Okay.
While living itself, you should say that I am that pure Atma.
Yeah.
That is
No,
the ultimate goal.
that is to be held. Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Vijaya, you wanted to ask a question. You're patiently waiting for this.
No, Ashash, take it. Jai Shri Krishna. I think I missed quite a bit of sessions due to my health being not permitting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the time permits because it's almost past 6:15. It's 8:15 for you.
Yeah.
Is that okay, or shall we
No,
park
no,
it?
go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. It's a curious question. I have to catch up with 4 sessions of yours. So I'm pleading ignorance if it's been taken care. But my curious thought when I come to Saddarshanam for thus far attended as sessions is, see, when we go to this Shupti Avastha, where I don't know what my body is, I don't really know what my mind is, and my ego also gets absolved, and I am nothing actually in that space, and that space is what ultimately one needs to reach for an elongated period of time. It's not just wherein I get up and I forget everything, but that's the state which probably at a level when we reach Turiam, where you are actually not anywhere, because once you become Aikyam with the Brahman, your identity, your I, everything gets absolved. There is nothing called you at all. It's only Advitiya one. So having known that, should I not get inquisitive to understand what is that which happens in the deep sleep, and how do I actually elongate that experience, than probably knowing to know that I, which is actually transient and false?
So your question is, how do I cross over from the sleep state and claim my true nature as Atma?
I mean, yeah, isn't it? Because in the deep sleep state is actually, I am in that bliss. I am having that,
Yes.
what do you call the actually, I know Anandamaya Kosha is also an inch fall short of the Atmic state, but that's the door, that's the welcome door to the Atma Avastha.
Yes.
That's the door for the Saddarshanam.
Yeah, this problem has been analyzed in Vichara Sagara, and this is a very common problem, and for which the teacher there has suggested Omkara meditation. A proper, you see, when your mind does the meditation of Omkara, by which it is prescribed, I'll be teaching that meditation in my Mandukya Upanishad classes. This is an advanced meditation technique which is from Vichara Sagara. It tells us the mind has to learn this. It has to learn how to view the waking state, how to view the dream state, and how to view the sleep state. We have to learn the process of how does the same consciousness, it expresses in the waking state in this way. It is the same consciousness when it expresses in the waking state, it is called as Bahish Mukha. That means it's the same Atma. It has got an external face when it goes through the sense organs, when it goes to the world in the waking state.
Bahir Mukam. Okay.
Bahir Mukha. The same Atma, that's pure consciousness, it is called as Antar Mukha in the dream state. And then it is called as, that is called as the dream state. Then there is an absorbed state of this consciousness that is called as the sleep state, where it is neither looking outside, it is neither looking inside, it is taking a pause. That pause state is called as the sleep state, but that is not the final state. Beyond the pause state is the final state, which is the Atma, the Turiya mind. The real state is not the paused state. Pause state is only for the jiva to get up. It is a potential condition of the waking state. So the pause state is called as the sleep state, and it is also called as the Karana Avastha. It is the cause of the waking state. But these are the states, these are all happening in the world, these are all in the cause-effect field of time and space. But Atma is beyond cause and effect. This is absolute, pure awareness, consciousness. It's got nothing in it. There's no world, there is no jiva, there is no jagat in absolute consciousness. And how one does this meditation, because unless we do this meditation, our confusion about this consciousness and the body and the mind will keep on hammering us, you know. It's a quagmire. We will not be able to notice the difference and bring our mind to single pointedness only with the help of that meditation, which is taught in Vichara Sagara. I just explained to you is what it says is, you say that I am not the Bahish Mukha, I am not the Antar Mukha, I am not the passive state of the sleep state also, but I am that pure awareness. So what you do is you resolve the three states and then realize your nature. So this is an exercise which is taught in Vichara Sagara, which we all have to do in order to remove our confusions about this body, about the mind. Only with reference to that pure consciousness state, we can say that the rest of the states are all seemingly there. It's Vyavaharika Satyam, whereas the pure awareness consciousness is Paramarthikam. I must learn the two levels in order to have the realization of the self. If I keep on looking at consciousness in the same level as the body and mind, we will never go anywhere.
Correct.
We will always be confused. So that split has to happen. The split will happen only when you meditate.
Okay.
There
Looks
is a
very
process.
tough, but yes, we have to give it a try.
That is a process. It is not difficult. You just have to learn it and try it, and then you will find, oh my God, it's so easy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
That's
Thank you.
Sekharji, one question from my side.
Yeah, go ahead, Venkatesh.
When are we going to start Vichara Sagara?
That is why I'm giving you some glimpses here and there. You see, Vichara Sagara is really
Maybe after Mandukya we can plan to start.
Right now, just
No, because
increasing
you are
the
putting
appetite.
you are putting lot of efforts and all. It may take a lot of time and all. So
yeah,
The
but
appetite.
I really don't
Right
know
now,
where-
we must have the appetite, so it's building up the appetite.
No, but you see, the problem is I really don't know how to do it because I've got 5,000 pages of notes of Vichara Sagara. That has to be condensed in the form of class presentations. That is my real problem.
God.
I've got 5,000 pages of notes of Vichara Sagara, which I've written in the last 1.5 years only. These 5,000 pages have been written in the last 1.5 years. And I have it in my head, but I need to put it into a form of a structure.
I feel very tempted to say you're not normal.
Anyway,
You
like,
are
see,
just supranormal. There is a concept called supranormal. So you are supranormal.
something we have condensed Brudanika Upanishad and all. Maybe some important part of it maybe need to be taken into consideration.
The beauty of Vichara Sagara is that it has analyzed this Mandukya Upanishad so beautifully. And you see, even in the Mandukya Karika, or it's not explicitly put in that Mandukya Karika, which has got 300 verses, Whereas in Vichara Sagara, the beauty is he has been able to apply that principle and clear your confusions and make you realize.
I'm curious to ask one question. What is the scripture you have not studied? Please answer. God, it's amazing, shocking. It's absolutely shocking.
No, but I find this text is very nice. And one day, definitely, I mean, in Mandukya class, I will be taking some portions of Vichara Sagara. The beauty of Vichara Sagara, what I explained to Vijaya just now, I'll be taking that portion.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much.
So you will get that
We
gist.
look forward to that. Yeah.
So yeah, let's build up our appetite.
Even when I do the meditation, I go to a level where you kind of become numb, and then you kind of become light, and then you kind of feeling that I'm not able to feel the floor, and then you start to get a fear, and I stop it. I say, okay, I'm not going to want to die.
You see, the fear will come because of Dvaita.
Correct. Yes, absolutely.
The fear will only go when you say that I am the pure consciousness which is appearing in the waking state, appearing in the dream. It is it is the same one consciousness. Yeah. See, there is some clarity about this consciousness is required. It comes over when you listen to the scriptures more and more.
Yeah, because Dehabhava killing becomes impossibility right now for me. So.
Okay, thank you very much. We had a good session today and a lovely discussion of 45 minutes. And good night, everybody. And
good night, Shubharatri.
We start.
Hari Om. Thanks a lot.
Hari Om. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Shekhar ji. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Night.